The United States of America is facing one of the most unaffordable housing markets ever. But what if I told you that you could get paid to purchase a home? Take a look. President Biden and the White House want to give 500,000 Americans money to purchase a home. Now, to be fair, this headline by Newsweek and MSN is a little bit deceiving, so let me break down what's actually going on. It's not a surprise that we've been seeing a painful housing market because on one hand, we have very low inventory of homes available for sale. Part of that reason is because homeowners are saying, I have a 3 or 4% mortgage. I don't want to sell my home and go out and get a 7 or 8% mortgage today, so I'm just going to sit in my home a little bit longer and not sell my home. So that's part of the reason why we've been seeing low homes available for sale. And the second reason is because builders are just not sure if they want to go out and build a home, because when a builder goes out to build a subdivision, it might take them 12 to 18 months to build that home. So they have to forecast what the housing market's going to look like in a year or 2 years as to what they're going to be able to sell these homes for. And you're starting to see this kind of confusion and uncertainty in the housing market, especially with builders. So builders aren't building homes as fast as they might have wanted to. So we're seeing a lower inventory of homes available for sale. Then at the same time, we've seen home prices rise so quickly over the last few years. And part of the reason is because, well, during the pandemic, mortgage rates were brought to their lowest levels ever. And we saw mortgage rates fall. Everybody wanted to buy a home. And when you had all these people trying to buy a home and not that many homes available for sale, home prices shot up. Well, now we are seeing the effects of everybody buying a home because now we have such higher home prices. And with all these higher home prices, we've also seen mortgage rates rise so significantly. But while mortgage rates have risen so significantly, home prices haven't fallen. So now you have not that many homes available for sale. You have the inflated home prices and mortgage rates that have gone up so much higher than where they were just a few years ago. This has all kind of culminated into one of the most unaffordable housing markets that the United States of America has ever seen. And this is where now you're starting to see this concern by the White House of how can we make housing more affordable. That's why recently the White House passed a $45 billion program to give money and subsidize office landlords. That way they can convert their offices into residential buildings, because these offices that are sitting vacant are costing a lot of money to landlords, and if they can convert these to residential apartments, well, then you'd have some more apartments available for sale and for rent. But now there's a new bill called the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, which was introduced by a Republican and a Democrat. This new bill is a tax credit available for people, builders, and investors who want to redevelop or build a single family to a 4-unit property in distressed neighborhoods. If you dig a little bit deeper, it says that their goal with this program is to generate $125 billion in development revenue. In other words, they want to give home builders, home renovators, and home developers some incentives to want to go out and actually build homes, especially in the lower income areas, because to go out and build a home there might cost you more than what you're going to be able to sell it for. And that's where these tax credits will hopefully incentivize these builders to want to go out and build homes, because now you're being subsidized through the government. The article says that the White House also wants to create down payment assistance for first-time home buyers that the White House says will uplift first-generation homeowners. There's a very strongly held belief that home ownership is the core of building generational wealth, because if you can own your home and pay down your home, then you'll own this asset that you can pass down to your next generation. Now, if you actually want to talk about building wealth, your home is one of the worst assets when it comes to actually building wealth, because no wealthy person ever talks about how they became wealthy because they paid down their home. Wealthy people became wealthy because either A, they built a business, or B, they invested in real estate rental properties, not the home that they lived in, or C, they invested in stocks and companies. These 3 asset classes have built more wealth than anything else in America over the last century, but everybody wants to say that it's home ownership that builds wealth. Well, can't argue with that. And in case you were thinking, but what if I rent a home? Do I get any assistance as well? Let's take a look. The president's budget proposes expanding rental assistance to more than 200,000 additional households, including a first-of-its-kind rental assistance guarantee for low-income veterans and former foster youth. So now that we covered what's going on in the housing market and what this bill is trying to do, let me help you understand a couple things. Because number one, you do not, let me highlight this, you do not want to rely on the government to be able to buy a home or afford your rent. Period. You want to be self-sufficient financially. If you want some assistance on that, we have a full ebook on how do you build wealth as an investor that walks you through the basics of how do you build a mindset of an investor, to how do you start saving your money, to how do you start investing your money, how do you generate cash flow, how do you spend your money smartly, how do you earn more money, and how do you protect your assets. This ebook is completely free. If you want to download this ebook and start reading and start learning, I'll put the link to how you can download this ebook for free down in the description below, or you can go to briefs.co/ebook. Now, if you don't want to rely on the government, how do you actually go out and own a home or afford what you want to purchase? Well, this goes to now understanding how do you control your finances, because a lot of people kind of get into this mindset that I need to be able to have this thing today. And the second thing they assume is that whatever market that you're in today is what it's always going to be like in the future. But the reality is, number one, the housing market doesn't always go up. We've seen ups and downs in the housing market. Right now, we are in a seller's market. It is not always a seller's market. We've seen buyer's markets and seller's markets over the last number of decades. So you got to understand that the economy and asset classes change. Number two is you got to take control of your finances, because, well, the reality is, at the end of the day, you have to be the one that's responsible to take care of yourself, your family, and your community. And if you are constantly relying on the government to take care of you, you are going to be getting the bottom of the barrel stuff, and it's never going to be able to be a very fulfilling and really purposeful life if you're just constantly relying on the government to take care of you, to pay for these things. If you want to have the nice stuff, you got to be able to afford it and take care of it yourself. And the last thing you want to understand about this is more of an economic impact, because, well, number one, the government doesn't have money to give away. We might think that it does, but it doesn't. We have trillions and trillions, tens of trillions of dollars worth of debt in the United States government. The United States government has more debt than ever before. On top of that, interest rates on this debt is rising very quickly. That means the government has to spend more and more money just to pay off its interest. On top of that, we're also still facing high inflation. So if the government keeps spending money they don't have, which is what we've seen them do and what they will continue doing, that's going to have an impact on the economy. What is that impact? More inflation. Who pays for the inflation? Everybody. In fact, actually, the person who pays for inflation are the people who are not very financially educated. Inflation disproportionately benefits the wealthy and the financially educated, but it disproportionately hurts the financially uneducated. Let's just stick with this example of housing. What's going to happen now if more and more people have free money, let's just say, to go out and buy a home? That means you have more buyers in the housing market. What happens if you have more buyers in the housing market? If you have more buyers in the housing market, you have more competition to buy a home. And if there's a limited number of homes available for sale and you have more buyers entering, that means home prices go up. Now, that's good news if you're a home buyer, but what if you're not getting any free money and now you want to buy a home and home prices are rising even more? Now you have more competitors to purchase a home, and you might be competing against somebody who gets $15,000 for free for their down payment. That can make it more difficult for people who have some savings and some money to go out and buy a home to actually compete. So you can start to see how it can become more difficult for people to purchase a home anytime the government gets involved. And so the question is, well, who do you want the government to help? Everybody, some people, nobody. And, I'm not going to answer that question here, but this is where you got to understand. Anytime the government gets involved with anything, whether it's housing, whether it's businesses, it creates disparities. And it will help some, it will hurt others, and somebody's going to pay that price. And whenever you see the government get involved when it comes with spending, that price is inflation. And the person who pays the price through inflation is the person who doesn't understand what inflation is, which is the vast majority of people. Because inflation makes consuming more expensive, and the majority of people are just consumers. However, inflation benefits asset owners. When we saw inflation in 2021, 2022, and into 2023, who did that benefit? It benefited the asset owners, the real estate investors. It benefited the stock owners. It benefited the business owners. But it hurt the people who didn't own the assets and who had to spend more of their salary to buy their groceries. It hurt the people who had to spend more of their salary to go out and pay for their rent. It hurt the people who had to spend more of their salary to save when they wanted to go out and go on a vacation. And this is where you got to understand there's a price to everything. There's no such thing as free money. In fact, the most expensive kind of money is free money. So understand what's going on, but also understand how the economic system works, because while you can't necessarily control what's going on in the system, you can benefit from it. And in order to benefit from it, you got to understand what's going on and build that financial education. That way you can capitalize on opportunities that might come your way. High housing costs will drive more Americans to become home renters instead of home owners in 2024. At least that's according to Zillow, who says the housing unaffordability will make the new starter home a single-family rental in America. Now, for those of you who don't know, Zillow is a housing conglomerate. Not only can they help you find a home to purchase, but they're also a real estate